Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Veil background information. We're doing another culture video today, and as always with the culture videos, and at the moment we're still doing about vampire culture, but in general they're just relating to cultural aspects of the Veil universe that I write in, and like things that apply there that don't necessarily apply here. Sometimes they have a base in our reality, and sometimes they're just things that seemed interesting. So we're going to be talking about the Rakshasas and the Ghoul in association with the vampires. So let's get started. So why is everyone in hospital so worried about it? If my baby brother's a Rakshasa, that doesn't mean anything bad, it just means he's a little more demon. It shouldn't matter, he's still my baby brother. Quote from Fire Viper. Mentioned briefly when talking about vampires, ghouls and Rakshasa are often the unpleasant aspects of discussing vampires, aside from the Chris Knox we'll talk about next time. The reason for this is because these beings link back to the demonic aspects of vampires and the unnatural aspects that toy with the ideas of mortal beings and souls. If it can be understood that a vampire has the option to go to heaven if they live a good life when they die because they have a soul, then to create a ghoul or a rakshasa, beings that some quibble over having a soul, is proof that they are not living a good enough life. Now, with ghouls, to explain it in simple terms, if a human or being is drained to the last drop but are not outright killed or turned by the vampire attacking them, they will reawaken with an inability to age or truly die, although they experience pain and hunger, for at least 100 years before they might be given the chance to return to the earth and be reborn, rather than risk going to heaven or hell. Often the ghoul makes up the army of the undead that many of the elder vampire families used to have to create to mark a claim of region or even to fight rival nobilities. Their existence was always seen as the truly demonic manner of the vampire ability, as no other species can create what is almost a zombie. Ghouls were often kept to be household staff. They were originally treated as just the living waste bins, given the scraps of bodies drained of all their blood that their vampire overlords chose not to finish. Their job was often to collect organs, and their ability to just rip living flesh open without needing to do more than push their fingers through the flesh has made them a daunting and nightmarish creation within the world of the Vale. However, during the reign of the third vampire king, ghouls were wiped out as an idea for an army, and instead when ghouls were formed it was often by accident, by foolish young vampires, and so the noble of the land would take them into their care. They were kept as servants and allowed to live as if they were in fact still alive. They could still fall in love, have relationships, and live however they liked. They just could not produce children, because that part of them was in effect deceased. They became just part of the normal framework of the Vale, especially during the 1800s. They proved industrious and eager to help the Vale develop its astonishing train lines and carriages, making a point of their position in the Vale as members of it rather than just zombies. As of the early 2000s, it is a crime in all parts of the Vale to create a ghoul, and if created by accident, it is up to society to find them suitable housing and care for the rest of their existence. This meaning that the vampires that pay the highest amount of tax are forced to pay for these beings, and with wealth outweighing nobility, the creation of ghouls has almost trickled down to nothing save with vampires that choose to live outside the rules and don't care about the others who disapprove of them. Now, Rakshasa are a little more complicated. For the background information of where they come from and how I use them here. Their name comes from the Sanskrit for a kind of demon that in Hindu mythology is a shape changer and is often considered evil with a hatred for sacrifice and prayers, or rather respect to the gods. In some stories, a female Rakshasa tried to kill infant Krishna by feeding him from her teat, which was poisonous, only for him to suck her dry to the point of death. They are thought to be the ones that suck milk from cattle to make them dry, eat human flesh, and overall have been linked to vampiric activities, with many modern scholars linking them as the Indian variant of the vampire. However, as most Rakshasa are linked to an image of a tusked creature with a bulging face, this bears more similarity to the Gorgon imagery. Now, within the Vale, a Rakshasa is a vampire born to a pairing of vampire and demon that is born with tusks instead of fangs and horrible bulging features, often with reddish hair and a murky skin that appears more flexible than it should. popping out bones to use as weaponry, and even doing unsavoury things like climbing up walls and ceilings. However, though they show off their demonic powers from this early age, they are still like most infants and require the same love and care from their parents. However, to birth Rakshasa was said in the old days to have produced a demon and proven that a bloodline was cursed, even if the father was clearly a demon and welcomed in the household. For a long time, these offspring were disposed of, or even kept in terrible places and fed enemies forced to be monstrous and not cared for. This fell out of practice during the time of the vampire king Malvolio as one of the many old manners that were viewed as harming anyone who was different. Some vampire doctors believe that Rakshasa may actually be the vampire equivalent to a kind of throwback in genetics, and for a brief period in the 80s, it was even being pondered as a kind of mental and physical disability, trying to link it to human ailments, rather than just considering that it was just showing that the demon parents' genetics were more prevalent. In the 2010s, this understanding that it was just genetics and there was actually no form or manner of defect or disability meant a better understanding, but still many parents were giving Rakshasa offspring into social care or trying to let them die naturally, causing serious uproar in all circles until laws were put in place to enable Rakshasa specifically as their own species and thereby having the right to live as any other within the Vale. Today, young Rakshasa often have to wear muzzles when out in public because they can injure themselves and others with their tusks, but aside from this, they live ordinary, happy lives, and after schooling can often control their human guise and therefore their tusks. There is still a great level of stigma about them. Some still going to specific care homes and orphanages for their kind and bearing the brunt of the ableist views amongst the Vale elite and vampires. However, they are not disabled, nor are they deformed or even the sign of a curse. They just look more like one parent than the other. Thank you for listening.